Hi, I'm Ernie Conover. Up until somewhere around 1850, a house carpenter or a cabinet maker would have had between 40 and 60 planes in his toolbox. In the second half of the 19th century, shop-made molding, that is, molding made in shapers and stickers in a millworks, quickly displaced molding made by hand by artisans out at a job site. Because of this, a house carpenter had much less need for all of the planes we just mentioned. So a product of the 1870s was the combination plane, which was a metal plane that replaced a great many of those planes that they had toted around. And not only was it cheaper than all of those planes, it took up much less room and weight in a toolbox. Sigley built a combination plane in the 1870s, as did Miller. The Miller Company was bought by Stanley Tool and Level Company, and they introduced their classic 45 in 1884. It was based on the Miller patent plane. It came with anywhere between 19 and 23 cutters through its long production time. They ceased production of this plane in 1963. And it would both plow grooves, and with the aid of two little spurs here in each of what were called the skates. And the skates are adjustable on two rails, which make this whole plane work. And this allowed you to adjust the width of this plane body to the width of any of the cutters in this box. And with the aid of these two scoring spurs in each skate, you could now cut dados with the same plane that you cut grooves with. A big advance in plane technology. But you could also cut a great many molding shapes. You could cut tongue and grooves, you could cut beads, you could cut coves. And so with the reduced need for such planes out at the job site, this plane really took off. There was thousands of them made. A number of years ago, Veritas, a company that's headquartered in Ottawa, Canada, brought out their small plow plane. It was a really welcome thing for ardent hand tool woodworkers like myself, for you suddenly had a really nice little plane that was very easy to adjust, held its settings well, which the 45 doesn't always do that, had a depth stop, a wide variety of cutters. So it was very exciting when in September of this year they brought out a full-featured combination plane. I've been using the Veritas combination plane for about 2 weeks now, and I'm pleased with its performance. Veritas offers about 36 blades at this time, and those blades range from a very wide 1/16" blade that turned it into a pretty darn good rabbet plane, to lots of plow blades that allow you to plow grooves or cut dados by lowering the two scoring spurs in each skate. There is also a wide variety of fluting and beading blades, and blades that cut parallel beads, creating what is called reeding, which is often used in decorative ways on furniture. There are also 3 different widths of tongue and groove blades. The best way for you to see how all of this works is for me to show it in action. I've set my depth stops. I've installed a 3/8 inch plow blade, and I've lowered the scoring cutters, which will cut the grain ahead of the cutter, giving us a nice clean cut. The last task is to install the fence and line this up where I want the cut to happen. I can micro adjust it down here and get everything just perfect. Now, I generally will drag the plane backwards to give myself a nice scoring cut to start with, right there. A little bit of wax always helps things. And the plane just stops cutting once we get to depth. There we've got beautiful clean entry right there and a nice dado. The Veritas Combination Plane also makes a decent rabbet plane by installing this 1 1/16 cutter. I've raised the spur that I used on this dado to get it out of the way so the fence could go under this skate. I've left this spur down on this right-hand side so that that will score this cross grain ahead of the rabbet blade. Again, I always drag this backwards before I go forward to get that scoring well established. I've placed a scrap piece of wood here so that I won't break out badly on the far side. And like all the other blades, this stops cutting once the depth stop touches the face of the work here. And there we have a very nice rabbet. And the cutter just stops cutting when you get to the right length of the tongue. I'm now making the groove half of this joint. You always start these by working backwards in short strokes like this. The final touch on this beadboard is to actually cut a bead next to the tongue. And to accomplish that, I've switched over to a 1/4-inch beading cutter. With our 1/4-inch tongue and plow blade, we've made a tongue and groove in this 1/2-inch material and then added a bead with the 1/4-inch beading cutter. This has made some handsome beadboard which would make great wainscoting. Veritas also offers a 1/8 and 3/16 tongue cutter, which would make handsome cabinet backs in material as thin as 3/8 inch. I'm using the 3/8 fluting cutter to cut parallel flutes in this little piece of walnut. With cutters narrower than a 1/4 inch and some specialty cutters, such as fluting cutters, you only use one skate, the body skate, and you can either remove the other skate completely or park it here very handily over the fence. If you happen to be left-handed, it is very nice. You can simply rearrange this with the fence on this side and use it in that direction, like I did at the beginning of this, because the grain is running in opposite directions for each half of this plank. And that's another reason to work left-handed, is you can be cutting with the grain and not against it. I'm hooking my finger under the fence and feeling the bottom of the plank, and that helps me to keep this at the same amount of levelness throughout this operation. By putting these lines of parallel flutes into the bottom of this toolbox drawer, it keeps all of these punches, spare blades for the combination plane, organized, and they don't roll around. Reeding is a decorative element applied to furniture in general. Veritas offers a number of reeding cutters up to 4 reeds. This is a pair of reeds. Well, you've seen me put this plane through its paces. We cut a nice set of reeds here, 2 rabbets in this board, a dado, and a groove. In addition, we cut tongue and grooves in these boards and added a bead as a second operation to make a bead board. Finally, we did some fluting in this piece to make a insert for our drawer that keeps the tools from rolling around. Give the Veritas Combination Plane a try. It's priced at $399 and comes with a 1/4-inch cutter. Additional cutters are between $18 and $24 a piece, and if you think about it, you generally pay that much or more for a router bit. So the price is comparable. Until next time, thanks for visiting.